Picture this scene. I know you've been there. You walk into a hotel ballroom. The air conditioning is set to Arctic blast.
Oh, yeah. Always freezing.
Right. And the floral centerpieces are so tall you actually can't see the person sitting right across from you.
And you are about to be served a piece of rubber chicken that, based on the ticket price anyway, cost you about $150.
Exactly. It's the classic nonprofit fundraising gala. It's an absolute staple of the industry.
It really is.
And the assumption, the reason we all keep going to these things and the reason organizations keep throwing them year after year is what we call the golden ticket theory.
Silver bullet.
Yeah. The idea that if a nonprofit throws a big fancy party, people eat dinner, and the money just magically rolls in to save the annual budget.
That is definitely the assumption. But today, we're doing a pretty serious reality check on that.
Yeah, we are.
We are looking at a panel discussion titled The Golden Ticket, Strategic Event Fundraising. And the experts involved, these are people from Kids Cancer Care, the Trellis Society, and a major philanthropist. They're basically tearing their whole assumption to shreds.
So it's less of a how-to guide and more of a why bother, isn't it?
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more about shifting the lens. We aren't looking at which wine to serve or how to pick the right cover band.
Right.
This deep dive is really going under the hood. We're looking at the psychology of the room, the hard economics of a guest list, and frankly, the dangerous disconnects that happen between the staff, the board, and the donors.
So to our listener out there, if you are expecting tips on napkin folding, you are in the wrong place. We're getting into the strategy.
Definitely.
So let's start with the math, because I think most people assume that if you sell out the room, you've won.
Right.
If every single seat is full, the event is a massive success. But the panelists made a really sharp distinction between the corporate economy and the personal economy inside that ballroom.
This is a crucial distinction. Usually, the financial backbone of these big events is corporate sponsorship. You have a bank, an oil company, a law firm, and they buy a table for $5,000, $10,000, maybe $15,000.
Which is great, right? Because that covers the bills.
It is vital. The panelists are actually call this the pro. The corporate money covers the hard costs. The venue, the AV equipment, the food.
So everything raised on the actual night goes to the cause.
Exactly. Once those hard costs are covered, every dollar raised at the event goes straight to the impact. But, and this is a really big but, there is a massive downside to relying entirely on corporate tables.
The warm body problem.
The warm body problem. Think about who actually sits at that corporate table. The CEO who wrote the check usually doesn't come.
No, they send a mid-level manager or maybe an executive assistant or a team lead.
Right. Or they just offer to whoever's still in the office at 5 p.m. on a Friday.
Hey, free steak, right?
Precisely. So these people didn't buy the ticket themselves. They aren't there because they are deeply passionate about curing cancer or feeding the hungry. They are there because it's a free dinner and a night away from the kids.
So you look out and you have a table of 10 people who are emotionally cold to your mission.
Cold as ice. I mean, they are checking their watches. They definitely aren't going to raise their paddle and bid $5,000 on a safari vacation in the live auction. They are just warm bodies filling chairs.
So if your room is, say, 80% corporate tables, you might have a totally full room, but financially it's a completely dead room.
You've hit the nail on the head. You have density, but you have zero intensity. So the strategy has to shift. You can't just let them sit there and eat the rubber chicken.
Right.
One of the experts in the panel used the term ignite. You have to have a specific targeted plan to turn those passive corporate guests into active participants.
But how do you actually do that? If I'm just there for the free wine, how do you get me to care?
Well, it starts with knowing who is actually sitting in the chair. And this brings up an exercise they mentioned that I thought was just incredibly practical. They called it the mental list.
Yeah, this sounded almost too simple to work when I read it.
It sounds simple, but almost no organization actually does it because they're too busy worrying about the centerpieces. You print out the guest list, and you sit down and you literally profile the attendees. You look at the names and ask, who are these people? What is their actual financial capacity?
Because if you don't do that, you end up with what they call the gap.
Yes.
You have a room full of people who might have $50 or $100 to spend to support the cause, but the only things you're selling are $10,000 paintings in the live auction.
You are literally leaving money on the table. One of the panelists described this beautifully. You need entry points for everyone in that room.
Because not everyone is a millionaire.
Exactly. If you ignore the people with lower capacity, you aren't just losing their $50. You're actively alienating them. You're subtly telling them, you don't really belong here.
They gave a really specific example of how to fix this, and I have to say, I absolutely love this idea. The punch wall.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Paint the picture for the listener on this one.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a temporary wall with paper circles all over it. You pay $50 or $100. You physically punch your fist right through the paper, and you grab a prize that's hidden behind it. A gift card, a bottle of wine, a spa voucher, whatever.
It sounds a bit like The Price is Right.
It is very game show.
Yeah.
But here's the psychology behind it. It's tactile, it's fun, but more importantly, it allows the person who can only afford $50 to have a winning moment.
Oh, I see.
They get to participate in the philanthropy just as much as the guy buying the trip to Italy. It democratizes the giving in the room.
So everyone feels like a donor, no matter the size of their wallet.
And that feeling of inclusion is exactly what leads to them coming back next year or signing up for a monthly newsletter. You've successfully bridged that gap.
Okay, so let's say we've optimized the room. We have the right people, or at least we're engaging the people we do have. But this leads to a much bigger strategic conflict that the panel highlighted.
Yes.
The fundamental difference between optimizing and activation.
This is where nonprofits often get so confused and honestly where they bleed a lot of money.
Break that down for me. What is the difference?
Optimizing is basically farming. It's going to your current database, the people who already know you and love you, and getting them to give a little bit more. It's low risk and it's low cost. You already know these people.
Safe play.
Very safe. Activation, on the other hand, is hunting. It's trying to find brand new blood, new donors. That is high risk, high cost, and it takes a very long time to see a return.
The problem, it seems, is that organizations want to have it both ways.
They completely suffer from the have your cake and eat it too syndrome. They build a budget as if they're just optimizing, spending very little money, but they secretly hope the event will magically activate 100 new wealthy donors out of nowhere.
And when that miracle doesn't happen, who ends up taking the blame?
Usually the development staff. And this friction creates one of the most toxic dynamics in the nonprofit world, which is the board disconnect.
I have to tell you, I felt the tension just reading the transcript on this part. It really seems like the board and the staff are often speaking two completely different languages.
They are living in different realities.
Yeah.
The staff looks at the board and thinks, your whole job is to sell tables. Go get your rich friends to buy tickets so we can activate new donors.
And the board member is sitting there thinking, whoa, I am a volunteer here. I'm not a salesperson. I don't want to nag my golf buddies for money.
Exactly. And the source material is very explicit on this point. If you are expecting your volunteer board to sell 50 tickets to strangers, you are setting everyone up for absolute failure. That is not their job.
I am sure that is a massive relief for any board members listening right now, but if that's not their job, what are they supposed to do? Do they just show up, look nice, and drink the champagne?
No, and that's the other extreme you have to avoid. Their real job is intentional hosting. The panel suggests a much smaller, sharper goal. A board member should identify 3 or 4 people they actually know really well, and bring them to the event with a specific purpose in mind.
So it's very much quality over quantity.
Exactly. And there was this fantastic case study from Kindred, that's Catholic Family Services, about how they actually operationalize this. Because usually you just tell the board to bring friends, and then you just cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Right. And then the board member spends the entire night hanging out with their friends by the bar, talking about their vacation, and absolutely no fundraising actually happens.
Correct. So what Kindred does is they hold a mandatory strategy session for the board 3 or 4 days before the event.
Wait, 3 days before? Isn't that when the staff is usually running around with their hair on fire dealing with logistics?
It is, but that's exactly why it works. It keeps the mission fresh in their minds. They sit down with the guest list and they break it down name by name. They ask a very specific question. Who is stewarding who?
Stewarding. That's a bit of industry jargon. What does that really look like in practice on the night of the event?
It means taking active care of the relationship. Who is going to greet this specific person at the door? Who is going to introduce them to the CEO? Who is going to make sure they actually sit down and understand the mission of the charity?
So it's basically assigning a chaperone for the night.
It's assigning a mission to the board member. One of the panelists used a great phrase for this. They called it shaking the edges off. When the board members walk into that ballroom after that strategy meeting, they are anxious. They aren't wondering what to do with their hands or who to talk to. They have a job to do.
They know exactly what their night looks like.
Right. They think, I need to find Bob, I need to introduce him to Sarah, and I need to make sure he pays attention to the video about our new shelter.
It turns the board from passive party guests into active, engaged hosts. I really like that. It gives them real agency.
And that intentionality completely changes the energy of the entire room.
I want to pivot to the other side of the checkbook now. We've talked a lot about the organizers and the board, but the panel included Jane, who is a major philanthropist.
Yes.
And her perspective was, honestly, a bit stinging to read.
It was a serious wake-up call for the industry. Jean introduced a metaphor that I think every development director needs to print out and tape to their office wall. She said organizations far too often treat donors as gates.
Gates. Like a fence.
Like a toll gate or an obstacle. The mindset is that you have to get past the donor to get to the money. The donor is just an ATM machine, and you just have to punch in the right code to get the cash out.
And I'm guessing nobody likes to be treated like an ATM?
Definitely not. She said donors want to be treated as bridges, not gates.
Bridges to what exactly?
Bridges to their networks. Jane's main point is, look, I know way more rich people than you do. If you treat me like a true partner, if you actually equip me with the right information, I will gladly become the bridge that connects my entire network to your mission.
But to be a bridge, you need a foundation of trust. And she was pretty blunt about how nonprofits accidentally break that trust.
It all comes down to clarity. She needs to know exactly what kind of room she is walking into. Is this event a fundraiser? Or is it a friend-raiser?
What's the practical difference in her mind?
Expectations. She said explicitly, if you tell her it's an acquisition event, meaning you are hunting for new money, she's totally fine with that. She said she will gladly buy 2 tables and fill them with new banks.
New banks, that is such a revealing, fascinating way to describe people.
It is a bit transactional, isn't it? But she means she'll bring fresh potential donors with high capacity. But, and this is the massive warning she gave, if she thinks she's coming to a thank you dinner, a stewardship event where she's supposed to relax and feel appreciated.
And then you hit her with a hard ask for money from the stage.
Exactly. You burn the bridge, she feels tricked. It's an ambush. And once a donor feels tricked by an organization, the wallet closes permanently.
There was another way she mentioned that trust gets broken, and this one happens after the event is over, the execution hangover.
Oh, we've all seen this happen. Yeah. The event ends, the staff is absolutely exhausted. They've been working 80-hour weeks for a month. They high-five, they clean up the venue, and then radio silence. Everyone takes a week off to recover.
Which seems completely fair. They're human beings. They need to sleep.
It feels fair to the staff, certainly. But Jean pointed out that from the donor's perspective, the event was just the starting gun. If they make a big donation or express a lot of interest that night, and then they hear absolutely nothing for 2 weeks because the staff is burnt out, it sends a terrible signal.
It signals incompetence.
Worse, it signals a lack of human capacity. Jean said that if she sees an organization go completely silent after an event due to staff burnout, she might actually stop supporting them. Not because she doesn't believe in the cause anymore, but because she questions the ethics of how they treat their own team.
Wow, so she's literally judging the long-term health of the nonprofit by how tired the staff looks the week after the gala.
She called it the human cost. Donors aren't just looking at your financial spreadsheets or your glossy impact reports anymore. They're watching how you treat your people. If your entire fundraising model relies on burning out your staff once a year, smart donors will see that as a massive liability.
That connects directly to the idea of ROI, return on investment. Usually, boards just look at a spreadsheet. We spent $50,000, we made $100,000, so we succeeded.
Right, and the panel argued that is a incredibly dangerous oversimplification. You have to factor in all the hidden costs, the staff burnout we just discussed, and the opportunity cost. What didn't the staff do for the last 3 months because they're busy arguing over choosing table linens?
They shared a story from Kids Cancer Care that really illustrates this dependency on offense.
This was a really frightening example of what not to do. They had an event that looked fantastic on paper, it was making good money, but when they finally dug into the actual data behind it, they realized that one single board member was personally selling 70% of all the tickets.
So it wasn't an organizational success at all. It was just a one-man show.
Exactly. In the finance world, they call that a key person risk. If that one board member gets sick or moves to another city or just gets tired of asking their friends for money, the entire event collapses. The revenue goes to zero literally overnight.
So what did they do? Did they kill the event?
They did, even though it was technically profitable, because it simply wasn't sustainable for the organization's future.
That takes some serious guts. Boards generally hate killing cash cows, even if the milk is getting a little sour.
It does take guts, but it leads nicely to the second example they gave, from the Trellis Society. They had a legacy event, one of those massive galas that's been running on autopilot for 20 years, but they realized it needed to fundamentally evolve. They had to put the legacy event on the shelf.
Thank you for your service. Goodbye.
Exactly. And they set out to build Legacy 2.0. But the controversial part of this case study was how they actually went about doing it. They outsourced the logistics entirely. They hired an external agency, Brand Alive, to handle the flowers, the venue, the run of show, all the details.
Now, hold on. I can hear donors bristling at that right now. I can hear the board members complaining, why are you paying an expensive consultant to plan a party? That money should be going directly to the cause.
That is the incredibly common reaction. But Trellis completely flipped the script on that thinking. They viewed that agency fee not as a sunk cost, but as an investment in their own internal staff.
Explain that logic to me. How does paying an agency help the staff?
Think about it this way. If your director of development, who is a highly paid professional, highly skilled at building complex donor relationships, is spending their afternoon on the phone arguing with a caterer about how many vegan meals they need, that is a massive waste of their time and salary.
Right. It's incredibly poor resource allocation.
Exactly. By outsourcing all those party logistics to an agency, the internal staff was suddenly freed up to focus purely on what actually matters, the relationships.
So the external agency handles the napkins and the internal staff handles the donors.
Correct. And the long-term ROI on that deep relationship building is infinitely higher than whatever small amount of money you saved by trying to plan the party yourself in-house.
It's all about the highest and best use of time.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap this up, we have to look forward. The panel touched heavily on the wealth transfer and engaging the next generation of donors.
Ah, yes, the geriatric millennial perspective. As a geriatric millennial myself, I resented that term slightly when I read it, but I do understand the point they were making. We're really talking about the 20 to 30-year-old demographic here. The usual nonprofit assumption is just to ignore them because they don't have any money yet.
They have student debt, not liquid assets. That's the classic thinking. But the panel argued forcefully that while they might not have big banks yet, they absolutely have big voices.
Influence.
Huge influence. And if you completely ignore them until they are 50 years old and finally rich, they won't have a clue who you are. You have to start engaging them right now.
But you obviously can't invite a 25-year-old to a $500 a plate gala. They literally cannot afford the ticket.
So you have to create totally different spaces for them. One panelist suggested something like a back room with puppies.
I'm sorry, a room with actual puppies.
Literally just a room with puppies.
Yeah.
Or hosting a casual Sunday brunch. Or a hands-on volunteer day. Something that engages them on their own terms, where the entry fee isn't a massive check, but just their time or their attention.
But playing devil's advocate here for a second. If you are listening to this and you're a nonprofit struggling just to keep the lights on today, why should you spend precious resources entertaining a bunch of 25-year-olds who can't actually write a meaningful check?
Because of their parents. This is the nuanced part of the strategy that I thought was just brilliant. The current major donors, the Janes of the world, they desperately want to see their kids involved in philanthropy.
Oh, it's about family legacy.
Exactly. If Jane looks over and sees her children actively engaging with your nonprofit, even if they are just playing with puppies in the back room or painting a fence, it completely validates her family's entire legacy of giving. She feels so much better about writing you that $1 million check today because she clearly sees a future where her kids will carry the torch forward.
So engaging the young kids is actually a high-level stewardship strategy for retaining the parents.
It's playing the long game on multiple levels at once. Yes, you are slowly building the future donor base, but you are also actively cementing the loyalty of the massive donor you have right now.
This has been a really massive download. We've gone from the granular economics of a ballroom to the deep psychology of the board and the donors. If we have to distill all this source material down to a single memorable takeaway for the listener, what would you say it is?
I'd say it boils down to this. The event itself is never the main event. One panelist beautifully called these galas punctuations in a 12-month sentence of communication. They are just single moments in time.
The magic isn't the expensive decor.
No, not at all. The real magic is alignment. It's ensuring that when someone finally walks out of that ballroom at the end of the night, they feel significantly more connected to your mission than when they walked in. And that holds true regardless of whether the chicken was rubber or a culinary masterpiece.
And the real work certainly doesn't stop when the house lights go up.
That's exactly when the real work starts.
So here is a final provocative thought to leave you with as you look at your own organization's calendar. If your team is celebrating the moment the gala ends, if you high-five and then disappear for a week of sleep, you might have already failed. The real test of an event's success is the morning after. You have to ask yourself, are you truly building a long-term bridge to your donors, or are you just burning out your team for a one-night stand?
That is exactly the question everyone needs to be asking.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you on the next one.